The clink of silverware echoed softly across the long table. In kept eating, oblivious to the man beside her, her small hands clutching the spoon like treasure, her face lighting up with every bite. Taehyung leaned back slightly in his chair, glass of wine untouched in front of him. His gaze was steady, but inside his mind was anything but calm. "What are you doing, Kim Taehyung? This girl this fragile, wide-eyed thing wasn't supposed to mean anything. She was supposed to be a pawn, a key to crushing the Lees, just a tool, a weapon. And yet, the way her lips curved in a shy smile when she tasted the soup. The way her eyes softened as if the food itself was a miracle. The way she sat, small and uncertain, in clothes that finally belonged to her and not someone else's cast-offs. Her innocence was dangerous, not to her but to him. Stop thinking about her, he ordered himself, jaw tightening. She's not yours, she's not anything. Just another piece on the board, but it was useless. She had already slipped past the walls he had spent years fortifying. Her voice timid, gentle echoed in his head. Does that mean I can buy lots of chocolate and dresses? He closed his eyes for a moment, gripping the stem of his glass. Her naivety should have been laughable. Instead, it clouded him. Taehyung inhaled deeply, forcing steel back into his veins. Control yourself. This is nothing. She's nothing. And yet, as YN looked up, cheeks puffed with food, eyes shining like a child caught in a secret, something in him faltered again. He tore his gaze away, pinching the bridge of his nose for a second. But when his eyes opened, they betrayed him finding her, always finding her. Kim Taehyung, the man who never let a weakness linger, realized with a sharp twist of unease she had already taken over his thoughts. Sunlight filtered through the tall glass windows of the Kim mansion, falling across polished floors and leather furniture. The house was quiet, but Taehyung was already awake, seated in his private study. Stacks of files covered his desk, contracts, reports from his overseas branches, intel on the Lee family's crumbling empire. Jungkook stood nearby, flipping through a folder, his tone crisp. "Boss, the shipment from Hong Kong will arrive tonight. We also intercepted Lee Han-jun's men trying to move assets overseas. Park Hye-min has already filed injunctions to freeze their accounts." Taehyung nodded without looking up, his pen scratching a signature across the page. His expression was unreadable, sharp as always, but his mind was not here. Every line of text blurred, twisting into the image of a girl sitting at the dinner table, cheeks flushed, eyes wide with wonder as she devoured her food. Why does she eat like that? Like the world might take the plate away any second. He clenched his jaw, signed another page, shoved it aside. Jungkook kept talking. "Also, we have intel that the Lees are preparing to bribe the judge." "Should I?" Taehyung cut him off, voice colder than needed. "Handle it. Make sure the judge doesn't even dare breathe their name." Jungkook paused, watching him. The boss was distracted. It was rare, dangerous. Taehyung leaned back in his chair, closing the file a little too sharply. He rubbed at his temple, eyes narrowing. What the hell is wrong with me? And yet one girl, one unwanted heir, sitting upstairs in his mansion was in his head like a stubborn ghost he couldn't exorcise. He gripped his pen so tightly the metal bent slightly. Focus, she's a pawn. A key, nothing more, but deep down, where he never let anyone see, Taehyung knew the truth. For the first time in years, something had slipped past his armor, and it terrified him. The grand double doors of the Seoul High Court loomed before YN. Her hands trembled as she clutched the strap of her small handbag, her palms clammy despite the cool morning air. She could feel dozens of eyes on her, reporters, photographers, onlookers. Whispers traveled like wildfire. Is that her, Lee Min-soo's daughter? The missing heir, she looks so different. Not at all like the rest of them. YN's chest tightened. She wanted to run. To disappear like she always had whenever her cousins barked orders. But this time, there was no dark hallway or broom closet to hide in. In looked up at him, her lash trembling. His expression was unreadable, but his presence alone was like an anchor in her storm. She nodded slowly. Inside, the courtroom was already buzzing. The Lee family sat in polished rose, uncles, aunts, cousins, all wearing expensive clothes, their faces pale with suppressed rage. When YN entered, their eyes widened in collective shock. That little servant here, whispers erupted like flames. The same mouths that once spat insults now trembled in disbelief. At the front, Park Hye-min adjusted his tie, smirking faintly as he spread his documents on the table. He had pulled every string, dug through every hidden ledger, every forged paper. Today would be bloody. The judge banged the gavel. Court is in session. The case of Lee Min-soo's estate versus fraudulent occupancy by extended relatives will now begin. In's heart hammered. She dared to glance at Tae. He leaned back in his chair with the calm of a man who already knew the ending. His gaze flicked to her just once, a silent promise. Don't fear them, fear me. Him instead, voice sharp as a blade, echoing through the room. Your Honor, today we present undeniable proof that the late Mr. Lee Min-soo's last will was forged, altered, and concealed by these so-called guardians, and that the rightful heir, his daughter, was reduced to servitude in her own home. Gasps spread, the Lees stiffened, papers rustled, and YN, clutching her skirt tightly under the table, finally lifted her chin. For the first time in her life, she wasn't running. She was standing. The gavel struck again. Proceed, the judge commanded. Hye-min rose smoothly, his voice sharp. Your Honor, the will of Mr. Lee Min-soo clearly states that all assets, estates, and company shares belong solely to his daughter, Lee Hwa-yeon. Yet, for 9 years, she was stripped of her inheritance and instead forced into servitude by these very relatives. Gasps filled the hall. Cameras clicked furiously. One of YN's uncles, Lee Hyun-sik, shot up from his seat. Lies, she's mentally unstable. That girl was nothing more than a burden. We fed her, clothed her, kept her out of trouble, kept her out of sight. You mean, Hye-min cut in coldly. Shall we discuss how she was locked away, starved, and stripped of her father's possessions while you drove luxury cars bought with his company profits? The courtroom roared. Reporters scribbled wildly. The judge raised a brow. Do you have evidence, Counselor Park? Hye-min smirked with pleasure. He tapped the files on the desk. Screens lit up on the side, showing bank transactions, forged signatures, and property transfers under the uncles' and aunts' names. Each one tied to dates just weeks after Lee Min-soo's death. Forgery, fraud, theft, Hye-min listed, pacing slowly. And yet they dare stand here, claiming nobility. The Lees panicked. An aunt, her voice trembling, pointed at YN. She was never meant to inherit. She was adopted. She isn't even blood. YN's heart dropped. Whispers rippled through the court. Adopted, not blood. Her hands shook until Tae's palm pressed firmly over hers under the table. Just a touch, grounding her, his voice, low and certain, reached her ear. They're lying. Look ahead. Don't flinch. Hye-min turned, smirking like a predator. Adopted, you say? Then explain the DNA test from Seoul Medical Institute, proving a 99.9% paternal link between Mr. Lee Min-soo and his daughter Lee Hwa-yeon. The room exploded. The aunt's face drained of all color. But the Lees weren't done. Hyun-sik slammed the desk. She's a thief. She stole jewelry from the house and ran away like a criminal. Do you want a criminal as heir? The judge's eyes shifted to YN. Miss Hwa-yeon, do you have anything to say in your defense? The world spun. YN felt her throat closing. All those years of silence, of lowering her head, of obeying. The Lee's eyes burned into her, spitting venom. But then Ji-hoo's words echoed in her mind. How long will you endure? Run away, fight back, they're monsters. And Tae's steady gaze beside her. You're not alone this time. Slowly, YN rose. Her knees wobbled, but her voice carried. Yes, I ran away. Not with gold, not with money, but with my life. The court stilled. Every whisper ceased. They called me names. They fed me scraps. They treated me worse than their maids while wearing clothes bought with my father's hard work, and that jewelry they claim I stole. It was my mother's, the only memory I had of her. The rest they took from me long ago. Her voice cracked, but she did not stop. Tears welled, shimmering like broken glass. My father left me everything. Not so I could be their servant, but so I could live. And yet they made me wish I hadn't been born. The silence was deafening. Even the reporters had forgotten to type. Tae clenched his jaw, fighting the strange ache in his chest as he watched her, his tool for revenge, become something more. A girl finally reclaiming her voice. The judge adjusted his glasses, his expression grave. Counselor Park, proceed with cross-examination. Hyman smiled coldly, with pleasure. Let's start with their overseas accounts because fraud leaves footprints, and so the battle raged on, neatly dragged into the light, each lie unraveled, each accusation turned back on them until their carefully built empire of deceit crumbled under the weight of truth. The defense lawyer, Mr. Kong, a slick man with a venomous tongue, adjusted his tie and stepped forward. His smirk was razor sharp. Miss Lee Wyden, may I remind you, you are under oath. Lies here will cost you prison. YN's fingers clenched the railing of the witness stand. Tae's eyes narrowed from across the room, reading the lawyer's intentions instantly. Mr. Kong circled her like a predator. You claim mistreatment, starvation, abuse. Do you have proof? Any medical record? Any police complaint? Or is this just a desperate fairy tale from a greedy girl who saw money slipping away from her hands? The Lees chuckled from their benches. Reporters scribbled furiously. YN's lips trembled. I never had a chance to complain. I was locked inside the mansion. My school was taken away. Objection. Mr. Kong slammed the desk. She's deflecting. No proof. No record. Just words. The judge glanced at Hyman, Counselor Park. Hyman rose smoothly, his face calm. Your Honor, if a prisoner is denied paper, ink, and freedom, would you also blame them for not writing letters from their cage? The judge's eyes flickered, but allowed the questioning to continue. Mr. Kong leaned closer to YN. His voice dripped poison. You said you were fed scraps, but witnesses have testified your cousins, your aunts, that you were well fed, clothed, and loved. In fact, they claim you stole from them, even sold items for your own pocket. Isn't it true, Miss YN? In froze, the word stabbed. She remembered her cousins smirking while she wore their old rags. She remembered hiding her mother's chain under her pillow. She remembered the whispers of thief they used to crush her. I never stole. Her voice cracked. Never. Mr. Kong pressed like a snake. What about the night you ran away with money in your pocket? Where did that money come from? The Lee smirked, whispering loudly, see? Criminal. YN's eyes stung. Her throat burned. The truth was bitter. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Hyman slammed his file shut. That money, he interjected smoothly, came from a girl named Jaehu, a maid, her best friend. We have her signed testimony that she gave YN her savings out of pity because YN had nothing. Not a coin of her father's fortune, not a single allowance. Tell me, Counselor Kong, when a maid saves money for the so-called heiress, does that not scream abuse? The courtroom erupted. Kang's jaw clenched. Still, he tried again. So, we have no record of abuse. No complaints, only tears. And suddenly, when her billionaire father's enemy takes her in, she remembers everything. Convenient, isn't it? The poison in his tone was unbearable. YN's heart pounded. She gripped the railing, nails digging in. But then she lifted her head, her voice cracked, but she forced it out. I didn't remember it suddenly. I lived it every day for 9 years. I cleaned their floors. I polished their shoes. I ate their leftovers. I wore their discarded clothes. And when I cried, they laughed. If you want proof, Counselor, look at me. The room went dead silent. Her raw, broken tone shook the walls more than any file or paper could. Even the judge blinked heavily, hiding his reaction. Tae's fingers twitched against his thigh, restraining himself from standing. His chest burned. Hyman adjusted his glasses, stepping forward like a final strike. Your Honor, the defense plays dirty with words. But words can't erase bank records, can't erase signed testimonies, can't erase the DNA that proves she is the heir. What they want, his voice sliced, is to bury a girl twice. Once in her childhood, and now in this courtroom. And I will not allow it. The gavel banged. The judge leaned forward, face stern. Enough for today. Court will resume tomorrow. Witness is dismissed. The gavel struck. Court is now in session. This time, the Lees sat stiff, eyes darting nervously. Yesterday they had been smug. Today, they knew something was coming. Hyman rose. His voice was cool but sharp. Your Honor, today we bring forth new witnesses. Individuals who lived inside the Lee mansion. Individuals who saw everything. Gasps. The Lee's lawyer, Kong, shut up. Objection. These so-called witnesses are nothing but servants, paid staff. Their word cannot stand against family testimony. Tae's deep voice cut across the court like a blade. He wasn't supposed to speak, but his presence was too heavy to ignore. Servants or not, they lived closer to Wyatt than anyone in that room. If the Lees claim they were generous, let's hear it from those who worked in their shadow. The judge nodded slowly. Overruled. Proceed. The door opened. A group of maids walked in, heads bowed. Among them was Jehu, her hands trembling, but her eyes fierce. She stepped into the witness box. State your name. Kim Jehu, she whispered, then steadied her tone. Former maid of the Lee mansion. Hyman smiled faintly. Miss Kim, please tell the court what you witnessed regarding Lee Yn's treatment. Jehu's lips trembled. She looked directly at Yn, who sat wide-eyed, her breath caught. Then Jehu spoke. She wasn't treated as family. She wasn't even treated as a human. While the rest of us maids had our wages, she had nothing. She wore the eldest daughter's old clothes. She ate the scraps we threw away. She was slapped, insulted, and called a curse every single day. The courtroom gasped. Cameras flashed like lightning. The defense lawyer scoffed. And do you have proof of these outrageous claims? Jehu smirked. Her voice carried fire. Yes, I do. She reached into her bag and handed over a small device. Tae's eyes glinted. He'd made sure Jehu and the others were protected before they stepped foot here. No one would touch them. Hyman pressed play. The speakers crackled and suddenly the courtroom was filled with ugly voices. Aunt's voice. Don't give her rice. Let her eat the bones if she's hungry. Cousin's voice. Look at you, rat, wearing my old shoes. Even our maid looks better. Uncle's voice. She should be grateful we haven't thrown her to the streets. Shameless brat. The crowd erupted in outrage. The judge banged his gavel, but the noise wouldn't stop. Reporters shouted. The Lee's faces went pale. Tae leaned back in his chair, smirking darkly. Perfect. Mr. Kong scrambled. This could be fabricated. A trick. Hyman raised a brow. Really? Then please, explain how every voice in this recording matches the testimonies of your very own clients. The Lees froze. Even they knew the voices were undeniable. One by one, the other maids stepped up. Each testified. Each spoke the truth. Some cried while recalling how they pitied Yn, sneaking her bread, helping her wash her tears in secret. The judge's expression hardened. This paints a very different picture than the defense claimed yesterday. For the first time, the Lee's confident masks cracked. Whispers of monsters, abusers, frauds echoed in the gallery. Yn sat stunned, tears welling. Jehu met her eyes and gave the smallest nod, like saying, see, you're not alone anymore. And at the corner of the room, Tae's eyes never left Yn. He wasn't smiling this time. Something heavier pulled at his chest as he saw her trembling, half in pain, half in relief. The gavel slammed again. Court will resume tomorrow for closing arguments. Until then, witnesses will be placed under state protection. Hymin bowed. Tae had already ensured that state protection would mean his men shadowing Jiho and the others day and night. The Lees wouldn't dare try anything. As the Lees stormed out, their faces twisted with fury. Tae whispered under his breath, low enough only Jungkook to hear, "Checkmate."